It's a 23b in Psachim. So we're looking to find Kol Isurim Sheb'Torah. What does this mean? Rashi says, Shenemar behen lav bechilasam. Kazeh. So everything that says don't eat, we have, as we've seen earlier in the Gemara, we have a heter for the hana. So therefore we have El Korcha Lo Maisi Ele Chametz Pesach v'Shor Nishkal. These are two things we're looking for. Chametz Pesach and Shor Nishkal. So Chametz Pesach, it's a maklokas Tanaim, if it's mutter or Asr B'Hano. So according to he who holds it's Asr B'Hano, how does he know? And everybody, Shor Nishkal, it says don't eat. So it says the Bashar Isurim Kativ Patr Leheteros. Even though it says don't eat, there is a heter for Hano that comes in the same parsha. So here by Chametz Pesach it says don't eat. It doesn't have a heter Hano. So how do we know that it's Asr B'Hano? And the Shor Nishkal, how do we know that's Asr B'Hano? So we learn it here. Minayin, how do we know? Dechrev kol chet asher yuva midama. So again, the chatos, kol chatos. So the chatos is the normal chatos that's in that you bring to the mizbeach outside in the azara. Don't asher yuva midama, that its blood is brought inside. So that's inside will be into the cheichal, where the kotoris mizbeach is. Whereas here's the psukim. The kol chatos yuva midama el oihel moed. So any chatos that's outside, you bring the blood into the oihel moed lechaper b'kodesh lo te'achel. So don't eat it. So here we have the lo te'achel be'esh tisaref. So burn it in the fire. Now, if I just had burn it in a fire, I would know you can't eat it. So I don't need to have the lo te'achel here. So I don't need to say legufo if it's not for the guf dichtiv v'hine saref. So I don't need to learn on the chatas itself. The chatas itself that I know that it's burnt. How do I know the chatas itself is burnt? Because it says v'hine saref. And this was the hine saref. This is the etzeira chatos darish Moshe. So this is from Parsha Shmini. V'hine saruf, and then he was unhappy with Elazar and Anitamar, the children of Aaron, who were left over. So we know from Moshe saying that it was burnt. With the so kol chatas yuvom midama lav b'chatas hapenimi. We're not talking about the chatas penimi that's brought into the oil moed, because that then the dam is meant to go inside. That you burn them outside of the machane. But it teaches on the chatas chitzoina that's in the azara that if you bring its dam lifanim, then it becomes possible. Imena inin legufo demakate v'hine saref b'seir nachshon b'hayu b'yom hashmini. So in the parsha of b'yom hashmini is the 8th day of the Meluim. There are three se'irs, there are three goats that are burnt. The three goats that are burnt are the shir nachshon, and that's the first day of, again in the parsha of in Bamidbar Naso, where at the end where all the Nesian, all the princes bring all their korbanos. So that's on the 8th day of the Meluim. So the first person to bring his korban that day, on the 8th day of the Meluim, is Nachshon, and he is of the tribe of Yehuda. So the second is the korban Meluim itself, that the Kohanim bring the seir, and then the third korban they bring is because it's on the first of Rosh Chodesh, so therefore it's a Rosh Chodesh goat, and that Rosh Chodesh goat is the third goat. So there's three goats: the Rosh Chodesh goat, the goat of the Meluim, and the goat of the Nesiim. The goat of the Nesiim is of Nachshon. So one of them was burnt and not eaten. The Etzeir Chatos Darish Moshe. Moshe is looking into why was it burnt? And he was angry, saying, why was it burnt? So Rashi here says that it was the Seir Nachshon that was on the 8th day. And Moshe said to them, why did you burn them? That hen lo huva etema ela kodesh panimi. Because its blood was not burned, that was not brought into the panimi. It's since the blood was not brought into the panimi, so therefore Meklal de'im huva shapir avud. So if it was burnt, so therefore they did a good thing by burning. If the blood did come into the inside, then they did the right thing. So he says, so since it didn't go in, you should have eaten it. Why was it burnt? That means if the blood was brought in, then it was good that it was burnt. The Sarufa, Alma Bat Sarufa, he. So therefore we can learn from Hini Saruf that since it was burnt, that's why Moshe was asking why was it burnt, because the blood wasn't brought in. So if the blood was brought in, therefore it will be burnt, and therefore I know that, so therefore I don't need to learn it from Be'esh Tisaref. So Be'esh Tisaref, I know that if the blood of the Chatos goes inside, the Hini Saruf, if the blood of the Chatos goes brought in, I know that the Chatos Chitzoni gets burnt. So therefore Be'esh Tisaref is extra. And I'm not teaching legufo of the Chatos, because I know legufo of the Chatos. Therefore, I go lechol iser shebatoira, which is all the Rashi is saying. He's talking about chometz and sor nishka. In lechila, then it's iser hana. Therefore, we learn an iser hana for chometz and sor nishka from the dam of the chatus. Now, Tosfos here dichte v'hini sorov, perish Rashi b'she'ir nachshon. So again, we got three goats, and he says it's Shir Nakshon. The Torah Chachamim Darish Behedia Ashir Derosh Chodesh. So the Torah Kohanim, which is the midrash on Vayikra, says it's clearly that it's Rosh Chodesh Seir. Midechtiv va'oitoi noisen lechem, and it's as a kapara. Vahinu Rosh Chodesh to mechaper avon. So it's given to you. Lechem is as a kapara. Because it's Rosh Chodesh, it's a Makarba Avon. Al Tumas Mikdash v'Kodshav. This is the Kapara of Rosh Chodesh. So Tosfos here is saying that it's not the Seir of Nachshon, it's the Seir of Rosh Chodesh. If we have a look at the Torah, why did you not eat the chatos b'mokim in the holy place? Ki kodesh kadoshim hu ota noten lechem nis'es esavon ha'eda lechaper lechem lefnei Hashem. So this is lechaper lechem, so it should be the. That's what Rashi. That's what Tosfos is saying, that it's lechaper lechem. Therefore, this chatos is lechaper, and it's the Rosh Chodesh. So Rashi on the Torah says l'seis esavon ha'eda. Mikan lomdu sheseir Rosh Chodesh haya. How do I know it's Rosh Chodesh? Because he mechaper al avon tumas mikdash v'kedoshav. So this is the same thing. This is the chetz shemini v'chatos nachshon lo lechaper bo. So these are the three chatos. The chatos of Rosh Chodesh. Rashi says that's it, and it can't be the chatos of the shemini of the miluim, and the chatos nachshon can't be it because they're not kapara. Again, this is the pasuk hein lo huva es damo el hakodesh. So this is the. So here he says, behold, the blood was not brought into the sanctuary, so you should have eaten it. So therefore, if it was brought into the sanctuary, i.e., was brought in lifmanim, it was brought into the heichal, again where the menorah and the shulchan and the katoiris is. If you brought it within there, then you shouldn't have eaten it because it gets burnt. So this Rashi is strange because he says here that's a shir Rosh Chodesh Haya, but our Rashi says that it's Nachshon. Now I think it's this yud here. This yud goes up to the Mesar Shashas. The yud here says the Kainhu lehedia b'shavuos tesam beis. So the shavuos tesam beis says that it's Seir Rosh Chodesh. Uber Rashi Sham. Rashi agrees it's the Seir Rosh Chodesh. V'kein b'zavachim kofal avam beis. V'kein perush Rashi b'chumash lehedia. Rashi in the Chumash says that it's now Seir Rosh Chodesh. It's a Rosh Chodesh. And Rashi is also Pei Beis Amud Beis. Here it says the Kach Nemor V'kein Kasav Rashi in Yoima. Different also Kasher Tziva V'kein Kasav Rashi Cholin. Different also HaKohon. So here the Mesar Shas is just bashing. It's getting a baseball bat and bashing up. Rashi says everywhere that it's the Rosh Chodesh. It's the Rosh Chodesh Seir. And here, Rashi is saying that it's the Seir Nachshon. So we're going to have a look at Sukkah 25b. At 25a. So, v'oiskim b'mitzvah potem min mitzvah. Mehacha nafka, do we get it from here? Mahasa nafka, we get it from there. From where? The Tani v'hayu anoshem asher hayu tamim lenefesh adam. So you had people, this is talking about Pesach Sheni. So some people were tamim lenefesh adam. Oisem anashem mihayu, who were these people? So one of the Perushim here is who were these people that, since no one died, you had the census before and after when they were stuck at Sinai for like a year and a half, it was the same number. So therefore, who were these people? Because there were no tamames, no one died. So Noisa Aaron Shal Yosef Hayo, different Rabbi Yossi Haglili. So Rabbi Yossi Haglili says that it were the carriers of Yosef. So yeah, no one died, but they were still carrying Yosef. Therefore, they were tamames because they were naga mames. Again, clearly no. Again, we have spoken about this before, but there is no din of tzaddikim or not tamei. Tosfos says that's not true. So here that they're tamei because they were with tzaddikim. Rabbi Akiva, he's going to be our friend. Rabbi Akiva Omer Misha ve'alfis and Hayu Shahayu Oiskim ben Nadava Avihu. So Nadav and Avihu were on Shemini. And they died on Shemini, and then it was Mishal ve'Alfis. So this is all part of our story. Then David and Avihu died after these three goats were offered. Rabbi Yitzchak Amar im noisei Orono shel Yosef hayu kafara hayu yochelin litaher. If they were carrying Yosef, they were ready to be mitaher. They could got the tahor already. Now, again, they were stationed for Sinai for over a year, so they weren't carrying Yosef's tomb for like a year before this. This was the Korban Pesach was just before Matan Torah. It was the next year. Yeah, it was the next year after Matan Torah they did the Korban Pesach, and then Pesach Sheni was after that. So they were at Sinai the whole time. So they had time to mitaher themselves. And if they were Mishav ve'alfis, they also were able to mitaher. So Pashas, why they're able to mitaher is because it was Rosh Chodesh when this happened, and they only need 7 days to mitaher and Pesach was on the 15th of 15th of Nisan. And it was Rosh Chodesh, so of Nisan and Pesach, they had to be tahor by Yud Aled. By Yud Aled, they had 14 days, so they could mitaher themselves. That they were moisim meis mitzvah, and the meis mitzvah here would be, according to what I said before, so it would be the Erev Rav, who were not included in the miracle of the counting that no one died. So Shahal Shavi Shalahen Lihot Be'erev Pesach. So there's a story of that. Now, according to Rav Yitzchak says that they were able to mitaher because they had time. But why did Rabbi Akiva say that they were tamei? So it seems to be a machlokas here between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yitzchak. The Rabbi Yitzchak said that is not them, because they had time to mitaher, and Rabbi Akiva said that they didn't have time to mitaher, or they were tamei. So there's a machlokas there between Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Akiva. And we're going to start the Pnei Yeshua, but not finish it. So here the Pnei Yeshua, Eino, Cannot legufo dechtev v'hi nisarav. Perish Rashi, b'she'ir nachshon. The Tosfos says that in terms of it's behedya d'shir Rosh Chodesh hayim. Ube'emes hachi itzi lehedya gam kein b'zevachim. So we saw a whole load of sources that the Gemara and Rashi himself holds that it's a shir Rosh Chodesh. Eila da'akati lav milta pesikehi hu. So Pnei Yeshua is saying that it's not everyone agrees to this whole din that it was Rosh Chodesh. Why not? Because somebody holds that the Shemini of Shemini Mahaya b'Shemona lechodesh. It was on the 8th of the month. So we got to get clear here because Rabbi Akiva never says this. This is our guide. Rabbi Akiva says, he never says this. Rabbi Yitzchak who argues on them, and Rabbi Yitzchak Pashat Shachal Shavi Shalahem Lios Be'erev Pesach. Rabbi Akiva never says that. But Pnei Yeshua is putting this Svar Shachal Shavi Shalahem Lios Be'erev Pesach onto Rabbi Akiva, and then according to that, then the whole story in Nadav and Avihu who died 7 days before the 14th puts it on the 8th, and therefore the Miluim was on the 8th and not on the 1st, and therefore since the Miluim was on the 8th and not on the 1st, so therefore there was no Rosh Chodesh goes because it was on the 8th and not the 1st. But it's not clear because here Mishav Yasim Hayu Shachal Yeshua, that's not what Rabbi Akiva is saying. And there's a tzalach. So the tzalach here, he gives a different pshat. He says they were not Nadrim Mekudim Dohi V'lo Hayelehem Offer Para Adasar Lachodesh. They didn't have the Para Aduma, the offer itself, until the 10th. So therefore, it could have happened on Rosh Chodesh, but they weren't able to. So what we're saying is that Rabbi Akiva holds that they would happen on Rosh Chodesh, but they couldn't. So Rabbi Akiva said that they had time, Yecholin Letaher, because he holds you already had the Paraduma on Rosh Chodesh. But Rabbi Akiva holds he didn't have the Paraduma on Rosh Chodesh. That's one of the pshatim that the tzalach says. He just says that there's no Ketavti Sham, that they argue on this, but he just says that we just don't see the Ferush that there is the Maklokas on this. But what the Pnei Yeshua is saying here is not so clear. That firstly, is this really what Rabbi Akiva is saying? And he's not saying that the Chal on the Shiv, but that's Pshat of Pnei Yeshua in the Gemara. That Rabbi Akiva is saying Mishov Yavzam were Oiskim ben Davanavihu on the 8th, and Rabbi Yitzchak says no, it was on the 1st. But they all hold Shechal Shavi Shalahen Lios Be'erev Pesach. So it's only the Maklokas Tanaim, and therefore he's putting Rashi in with that. It says, well, not everyone holds that there is Rosh Chodesh. V'imkein lo hayabota yom shir Rosh Chodesh, because it wasn't Rosh Chodesh. So therefore, how could it say? V'nira shelezeh remez Rashi b'masha katav b'vayihi b'yom hashmini. Here l'chayra, he's talking here the seir nachshon b'vayihi b'yom hashmini. So what does it mean? The seir nachshon b'vayihi b'yom hashmini. He's talking about the Parsha, but here he's saying that he's being medayik, that it was Tavka on the 8th day of Nisan. It wasn't the 8th day of Meluim, it was on the 8th day of Nisan, and therefore the Remez, the Rashi is saying that it's Seir Nachshon, the Kapi Rosh Chodesh, because it all happened on the 8th day. Now at this point, we have to work out, so why is Rashi flipping? Rashi knows that it's Rosh Chodesh. Rashi knows all this, and Tosis having to go at Rashi up here. Rashi knows that it's Rosh Chodesh, but Rashi's saying Davka here in our sugya, it has to be Shir Nakshon, even though he knows that it's Rosh Chodesh. But here it can't be Rosh Chodesh. Based on our sugya, Rashi flips it. Now at this point, I think I have to see this Tosfos, and then maybe with this Tosfos because also this Tosfos is also hard to understand. Maybe with the Yesodus of the Pnei Yeshua, I will be able to understand Tosfos as well. They have to clear V'hine Sarov. So Perish Rashi v'Omer Lahu Moshe hen lo huva es damo el hakodesh penimia meklal de'im huva shapir avud to serufa. So Rashi is saying that since Moses says, I see that you've burnt the seir, you've burnt the goat. Why, since the blood didn't go into the panimi, why did you burn the goat? If you brought the blood into the panimi, you should burn the goat. Now, Tosfos has a problem with this because the goat doesn't necessarily have to be burned. Just because if the dam goes into the panimi, the dam becomes posel, says Tosfos. It's because the dam's posel, that doesn't mean that you burn the goat right now. So Heksha Harav Rabbeinu Shlomo Mitoris Ha Al Korchacha Lav Shapir Ovud Disarufa. For sure you shouldn't burn it. The Ha Sarufa Below Ibrit Surta. Because you burn it without the Ibrit Surta. What Tosfos is saying is that you have a posel in the dam does not cause a posel in the goof of the korban, since it doesn't have a posel in the goof of the korban. You can't burn it until there's a posel in the goof of the korban. Ibrit Surta means that you leave the korban overnight, and then once you have the din of lina in the goof of the korban itself, so then you have a posel in the korban, and therefore you burn it. So Tosfos is saying that Rashi holds that once the dam is posel, then you burn the korban, and Tosfos says no. Once the dam is posel, you have to wait to have the korban burnt. So v'omer b'per ketzad tzoylin kol sheposlu begufo yisaref miyad. So whenever there's a posel in the goof of the korban itself, so then you burn that kodesh immediately. But when there's a posel in the dam, u'b'bailim taver sorta, because the bailim and the dam are side issues here. It's not in the goof of the korban itself. It's a side issue. It's not the korban that has the problem. It's a side. So if you have a problem with the bailim, say the bailim die, you don't just start burning his korban. You have to wait until there's a posel in the goof of the korban. So Tosfos is saying that the dam is not part of the goof of the korban, and therefore when there's a posel in the dam or the baal, therefore you have to wait until there's a posel in the goof of the korban. And now this dam is actually saying if it's nitma or if it's nishbach. So the classic case, and everyone's going to have to agree to this, but when there's a problem with the dam that is nishbach, that it gets built, so now you can't do the zrika, the goof of the korban is still like kosher. So you can't just burn that goof of the korban. You have to wait overnight, and then there's a posel in the goof of the korban itself, because you can't keep the korbanos overnight. So if the dam was spilt or the dam became tameh, you can't zayrik it. But the korban's not tameh just because the dam's tameh. So therefore, you mobrit sorto that you leave the korban overnight. Then then only in the morning is there a posel in the goof of the korban, and then you can burn it. V'yetzer l'sereifa in the morning. V'kro hakikam or medua. So therefore, this is a whole question on Rashi. Rashi's saying that. Rashi's saying that if the dam was brought in, it's good that you burnt it. But the dam wasn't brought in, so you shouldn't have burnt it. But Tosfos says even if the dam is brought in, you still don't burn the chatos. You don't burn the chatos because there's no the dam the pasol in the dam is not a pasol in the ikar of the korban, and therefore you still don't burn it. So he has to come up for kro hakikam, or he has a whole nivihini sarof, the way that we said it, the pashtus, that since the blood didn't go inside, why did you burn it? But if the blood did go inside, good, you burned it. Tosfos says no, that's not even true. So therefore, what's the limud in the pasuk? Now the Simon Tezvav here in the stipler. So basically, he delineates the machlokas between Rashi and Tosfos, as we're saying. How do you treat the blood separate to the korban? Is the blood part of the korban, or the blood is separate to the korban? So basically, if Rashi holds that the blood is part of the korban, so therefore if there's a posel in the blood, then therefore there is a posel in the korban, you can serve it miyad. But according to Tosfos, a posel in the dam is separate from the korban. You have the korban, you have the dam, and the dam is not the korban, and therefore if something happens to the korban, you can't burn. You can't burn. So basically, Rashi, I think it's really in the first paragraph here. It calls it b'shar pasule dam. Shepulim shem sam posel al korban. Aval b'posel zeh de dam chatos shehuva b'panim nira de ka'avid posel al kol hakorban. So this is basically the idea here that Rashi is avim kain shapir makshev kaposel begufo. So again, that's basically the machlokas here as the stipler brings it out, is that the posel zeh, specifically this, because we saw nishbach and nitma, that's a different type of posel in the dam. Everyone agrees that's not in the goof. But this posel where the dam chatos is brought in perim is nearer that's like a posel on kola korban. It goes a bit deeper than that, and therefore a shaper makshiv kapsula begufo. The ain sarek lahamtin, you don't have to wait until it's noiter. So again, it's ibut just makes it noiter, and therefore you burn it. The haposel va'oimedhu, it's already posel. So that can you see that's in Shitas Rashi. So this type is holding that Rashi is holding that this psul in the dam in this case when you bring it inside, that's enough of a psul in the guf. Tosis holds the psul in the dam that goes inside is not enough of a psul in the guf, and therefore you need the ibut and that's the maklokas Rashi Tosis. So now we have here. So Tosis still needs to understand what is the reboy of the hinisorov. Why did you not eat the chatos? Hen lo huva es damo. So you didn't bring the blood inside. Ha'im huva shaper avud. And if you did bring it inside, it's good. It's good. What de lo achlua, that you didn't eat it. So it's not the burning it. It's just it's good that you didn't eat it. So Moshe is asking Aaron and the Kohanim, why did you not eat it? So if the blood is poured inside, it's good you didn't eat it. And Tosfos still hasn't answered anything about the Hinasarov. Inou, Inyan, legufo. So now we have to have the whole thing off. So now you just explain the Pesachim in Parsha Shmini. But now what's the Inyan, legufo? Daha kaimalam beperach ketzed soilin. Kol shepoislin bekadosh besreifa. So anything that's possible in the mikdash is burnt, and the chatos the Aaron misham ma'aser shahaya tinu lechol isurim. So this re here is difficult to understand, and with the ending of the Pnei Yeshua, you can bring them both together as Pshat in Rashi. We can also use for Pshat here in Tosfos. So the answer of Pnei Yeshua should help us understand Rashi and also Tosfos, I hope. But let's see. I'm not sure it's so clear. And the Masha Hechroch Rashi needs kan lefaresh the misugya to shmaisim hu mochria mishom de kashalan. So it has to be the nakshon. So why kashalan bahad kamar imenu in legufo? So since the Gemara says kol chatos sheyivomi dama. So over there when they bring the dam goes inside to the heichal. It shouldn't say Ish Tisaref. Why does it say Ish Tisaref? Because I don't need it to say Ish Tisaref. Here it was in Parshat Tzav. Because if it's in legufo, why is it not in legufo? Because I already know from Vihini Saref. So since I already know it from Vihini Saref, therefore what do I need by Ish Tisaref? That's the structure of the sugya. So therefore, since the Gemara says in legufo, Vihini Saref, my kushia. So what's the whole kushia of the Gemara? Ha kro de Ish Tisaref ketiv Parshat Tzav. So the Eish Tisar, the previous pasuk, was Parshat Tzav. It's Aaron. V'nemer koidim akdamasik mishkan. So our pasuk with the goats and by Parsha Shmini is after it's the 8th day of bringing up, 8th day of the Meluim. So therefore they've been putting up and down the Mishkan for 7 days. And now on the 8th day it goes up. Hamishkan lemitzvah ledoirus. So now the first time they have a mitzvah l'doros for the karbonos is on the 8th day. So all the karbonos up to this point, you don't have a mitzvah l'doros. So again, the 8th day of Meluim, you have these karbonos for 8 days, which is the chachanis of the Mishkan. So they're not mitzvahs l'doros. They're only karbonos for that specific time period. And then on the 8th day, the Rashi says that Moshe put up the Mishkan and it stayed up. The first 7 days he put it up and it kept on coming down. And the 8th day it stays up. So now the Mishkan and now you can do it's all mitzvahs l'doros, not mitzvahs l'shah. The krov v'han hu saruf, they're burnt ha'inu misham ma'aser shahaya. So there was a story, and this is just what happened. So since it's just what happened, it's not giving me a mitzvah, it's not telling me a mitzvah, it's telling me a story. The imkain the hachi who, if true this is coming for a story, the halakusta de milta. It's true. Why was it burnt? It was burnt because Aaron was Anina. So it's a maklokas as to why exactly was this goat burnt. It says because of it was an oina and you burn it. One says because the blood was it says that the blood wasn't brought in. So he says because so if it was brought in you could burn it. but here he was burnt because of aninus. So Maro Aaron Lesarfra. So why did he burn it Bechal? Because the blood wasn't brought in. Why did he burn it? So since it wasn't told to him yet, this whole din of the Posel Kodesh is sarif. You keep in mind the Kamar Moshe hen lo huva ha'im huva shapir safra. So this whole thing that Rashi brings that he could have brought it in. Hayinu al korcha mishom shekavar amar la'aron. It has to be that Aaron must have known this from somewhere else. It wasn't told to him. We're not telling him in the Pesukim. This whole story of Rashi's talking about, if it was brought in, and we know he'd have to burn it, that was all told to Aaron beforehand. So that was like a Moshe Halacha, Moshe Misinai, that they knew from outside, nothing to do with the Pesukim. Therefore, Rashi says that the sugya haka has to be the she'ir nachshon, as I explained. The imkain, if you look kavar amar lo Moshe kro the be'esh tisavra, if atake amai sarfu Aaron. So therefore, even if it was she'ir nachshon. Therefore, even if we knew, then why did he burn it? Ha kro the be'esh tisavra is lo kai ela kedushi doirus. So the previous pasuk, as we have in the Gemara. So this is the previous one. Kol chatos asher yuvo midamo. That's in Parshat Tzav. Be'esh tisaref is like six paraks later in Parshat Shemini. Now here, this is a korban ledoirus, and a korban ledoirus. So therefore, we could learn, but we haven't told it yet. Now the way that Toisus is learning, he's learning it's the korban Rosh Chodesh, and obviously the korban Rosh Chodesh is a korban ledoirus. So we do the Rosh Chodesh every Rosh Chodesh, but the she'ir nachshon, it was only then. It was a special korban for that time. Saying Rashi had to learn that it was a kodshei shah, not a kodshei doros, because had the H tisaref lokai elek kodshei doros. So the previous pasuk is on the kodshei doros. Therefore, now it's on the she'ir nachshon, which is a kodshei shah, kodshei nachshon, kodshei shah haya. Varan kufa ha mahader leMoshe im shemati b'kodshei shah shema lo shemati b'kodshei doros. So again, this is the midrashim explaining the story. So we have the chiluk here between the kodshei shah and the kodshei doros. Al madiesh lechalek b'neihem. Therefore, we see that there's a difference between them. The imkain hu adin le'ilin mitzvah sereifa, and therefore also by the mitzvah sereifa, you one din for the kodshei shah is different from the kodshei doros. So therefore, even though I know from the kodshei doros, I don't know about the kodshei shah. Yesh lechalek ki heichid eshalek. So Shas and Perek Ketzit Toilen also has the chiluk between the kodshei shah and the kodshei doros, and the kodshei kadashim and the kodshei kalim. So since we have a chiluk, so therefore Rashi Davka makes it as a kodshei shah, not a kodshei doros. V'im kain kamor haka shapir imena ilin legoifu. Therefore, only because Rashi is learning that it's a kodshei shah, it's good. To kaven al korcha ika hilchas karo lamali. Now, so Paneshu is saying that outside of the Pesukim, we just have this halacha Moshe Misina that everybody knows, because no one knows what the halacha is. But according to the Pesukim, no one should know what the halacha is yet. Aaron seems to know, and he burnt it. And Moshe seems to be saying, why didn't you burn it? So they seem to have known from outside. So again, we kind of left at the end of the Tosfos. The Oimer Ri, the Haki Perusho, Imena Inlin Legufo. If it's not for Legufo, what does that mean? We have this as a halacha, Moshe Misina, that everything that is possible Kodesh is Besreifa. And the chatus of Aaron is Mishum Maisha Shahaya, Tinu Lechol Yisurim. So therefore, we just have this halacha coming outside of the Pesukim that everybody knows that's by Sreifa. Therefore, it's a Eino Ilin Legufo that we already know from a halacha. So, Im Eino Ilin Legufo is just that we know it from a halacha from outside. So that's how Tosis is saying it. We don't need the Pesukim Imeno Ilin Legufo because I know it from a Vihini Sarif, which is coming from a halacha. He said Maisa Shahaya. The Tosis is getting the he's saying it's a Maisa Shahaya. So gave it to all Isurim. So there was only one. Masha Shahai is the one Chatos, the Chatos of Rosh Chodesh or whatever. But therefore, give it to all Isurim, give it to all Chatoses. But Tais is saying that there's a halacha outside, and we're not learning the halacha in the Pesachim. Therefore, bringing that back into Rashi, saying that since Toisus is learning that it's Rosh Chodesh, therefore it's an inyan for Kodshei L'Dorus. And since the Chatos, we want to learn an out from Chatos, so therefore we'll have a Kodshei L'Dorus from Kodshei L'Dorus. So there has to be a halakha coming out here because the Poskim doesn't tell us. Okay, now if it was Rosh Chodesh, like Tosfos is saying, there wouldn't be extra. It would be goof of the din where the pasuk is telling us. So it wouldn't be a halakha outside. So we're saying over here in Pesach Tzoilin that it's a halakha misina, that we know it from outside, not from the psukim. So if Hine Saruf is coming to tell me that the din of Rosh Chodesh, so then I would know this would taka goof would be the din that the pasuk is coming to tell me, because I have no limud for Kodshei Doros. So you can't say it's imeno inyan legufo. You can't say that, because here be'esh tisaref imeno inyan legufo v'hine sarov can't be the goof of the halacha, because if it was, then it wouldn't be extra. So therefore, I need to have a Kodshei Shah coming from the outside. That the halacha of why Aaron burnt it, Moshe told him nothing to do with the pasuk. And this is Nachshon, and therefore it's Kodshei Shah. Since it's Kodshei Shah, therefore it's completely extra. So here the Gemara has to hold that it's Nachshon and not Rosh Chodesh. Otherwise, it'd be Doros. Because if it was Doros, then I would need it legufo, because I would learn from here Rosh Chodesh to all of the Chatos, because I don't have a source for Chatos in Kol HaTorah. But since this is Kodshei Shah, so if I don't have a source for it, and therefore we go back to what the Gemara says before, that it's a halachim Moshe that told Aaron outside of the Pesukim, and this can't be him telling him inside the Pesukim, because it's a Kodshei Shah, and therefore it's extra. Because if it was Kodshei L'Doros, I would taki use it for to learn out everywhere, and therefore since we learned that Moshe told Aaron outside, therefore this taka has to be a Kodshei Shah, not a Kodshei L'Doros.